So talking about the Commonwealth and how it could possibly do more to support Fiji in terms of initiatives, in terms of investment, thinking about if the Commonwealth could do more to assist in enhancing climate resilience and sustainability, and if there's areas for greater collaboration between the Commonwealth countries themselves, between the UK and Fiji, or within Commonwealth Pacific nations.
In terms of the Commonwealth, I assume Commonwealth would do quite a lot. Because now the whole idea behind setting up the Commonwealth was basically trying to pool the resources of all the countries into one. So that was basically an economic model of what the Commonwealth was all about. But we can still do the same. We can still pool effective human resources, and we can also, using that, we can actually try to address climate change issues within the Commonwealth, notably in the Pacific Island countries. There's a shift. There might be a shift in terminology. Right now, we are referred to as SIDS, Small Island Developing Nations, but I think that should actually change into big ocean nations. You know,
yes.
with the emphasis of we are actually custodians of the Pacific Ocean and so on and so forth. And this is where a lot of research could actually come in to actually assist in climate change. Commonwealth, I am really not aware of the initiatives which Commonwealth is actually sponsoring, but I am sure there must be some. But I know that the British High Commission has been actually actively working in the climate change space. But yeah, I feel what we need is not only money. Financing is important, but we also need to identify people who are working on ground, who can actually give a better return to the money that is actually poured into climate change. It's no point having projects whereby you are just showing the world that we are doing a project. The effects of the project should really seep down to the grassroots level. The grassroots level person, a simple layman at the project site, should be able to say or should be able to explain what happened in terms of the project. Not only the development partners, not only the donors, not only the people who are actually implementing them. It's the grassroots level people who should be able to tell someone that, okay, this particular initiative happened, it was sponsored by the Commonwealth or it was sponsored by some other donor agency. I think that's where the shift should actually come about. So you have funding, you have the right type of people who are actually going to administer that fund, and then at the bottom you have the recipient who actually knows what actually happened, where that money was spent, or how spending that money actually changed their livelihood in terms of this climate change that we are actually facing. I think that's what is important.
So it's important to not just have the Commonwealth saying, okay, well, we're doing something here, but that there's genuine action on the ground.
Yes, genuine action. The other thing that should be really looked into is most of the time when I see projects that are happening, so if wherever the donor is basically funding a project from, you basically get, or most of these people, the project managers and these technical advisors, they actually come from that corner of the country. So if say for example, if Europe is funding, you basically will have technical experts and all of these people coming from Europe and managing whatever is over here. You'd only have local finance people managing the funds. Now I see a big mismatch in there. An expert is an expert. An expatriate coming from another part of the country, it will be very difficult for them to understand what is really happening in another part of the world. It's not impossible, it will be quite difficult. So the other thing that should be looked into is, the donor funding is coming, you look at local people to lead the projects. Because local people will also be able to identify with the project, they will take more ownership of the project. That's what my feeling is. Because and in that way, you get a better return on the dollar that is spent, or on the pound that is spent. So donor funding, but locally led. Overseas funding, but locally led, locally implemented, local monitoring and evaluation. Obviously, you need to have the donor coming in time to time to see them. They would have an expert panel for them to come and evaluate, but it needs to be locally led. I think that's where some of these things might need to change.
Definitely agreed on that front. I think that we need to be making more space for that local approach,
Yeah.
as opposed to just sort of bringing in outside specialists
Yeah.
who maybe would lack that internal knowledge.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it actually happens. And one of the other things that is actually happening right now is there's a big push. You might be following this. There's a big push on traditional knowledge. You know, capturing traditional knowledge, and there's a buzz right now using traditional knowledge for climate change adaptation, for climate change mitigation as such. That the whole idea is basically just to capture traditional knowledge, see what was happening prior to what climate change is doing to us right now, and then trying to put those sustainable management issues into our daily lifestyles right now. Because most of this traditional this traditional knowledge that we are talking about, if you look at the Pacific, the biggest problem is that most of these are not documented. The Pacific is more of an oral what do you call that? Culture. It's more of an oral culture rather than a written culture. So now what people are doing is they're trying to put this oral into written, and because these things were happening prior to climate change coming into play, and we have seen that these things used to be more sustainable. They basically also had an environmental protection edge to these things, whereby, you know, if you're looking at agriculture wasn't that extensive. Fertilizer use, pesticides use were not over there. Even if it were there, it were minimum. But these things are now, they're basically trying to slowly get these things into the grassroots level, and then they're trying to get those stuff from going on from there. So, you know, even looking at that, capturing that particular knowledge and trying to put that in place would also help.
Oh, agreed. Thank you very much for the insights.